Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. You are listening to the Mari Mukwanda Show on Salam Media. Addiction is a chronic disease that has the potential to negatively affect a person's life and health. One of the casualties of a battle with addiction is the trail of damaged relationships it leaves in its wake. With the right kind of help, repairing relationships after addiction is possible rather. Joining me right now is Nazia Saloojie, a life coach and counselor. We're going to be talking about how to repair relationships broken by addiction. Assalamu alaikum, Nazia.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Maryam. Jazakallah for having me on your show again.
Shukran, it's always a pleasure. All right, first of all, do all addictions ruin relationships? If not, how can we recognize those addictions that do ruin relationships?
So, addiction is a very, very complex kind of a disease which compromises relationships. It compromises trust. It compromises a lot of interpersonal, especially when it comes to your family and friends. It leads to
Mhm.
people taking advantage of the trust of those around you. So it definitely does affect and ruin a lot of relationships. And that is why one of the cornerstones of treating such an addiction is asking for forgiveness or making amends with those people that you've hurt along the road or those that you've taken advantage of in order to attain financial means to fund the addiction or stolen, for example. And it's a really harsh reality that unfortunately, yes, a lot of relationships do get damaged because they take advantage of the relationship to make the means to get what they want to get.
All right. How does addiction affect the families of the addict? What does it do to them?
So addiction affects the families when trust is broken, when this person cannot see or fend for themselves, when this person is unable to function in their daily lives, in their roles as mothers, fathers, or even in their workspace if they're not parents as yet. So it actually damages the development of the person. And we're talking about adults. When it's addiction in children, it actually hampers their growth for the rest of their life. So it damages their brain to such an extent that they go into a state called psychosis. For example, if somebody smokes dacha, they go into a state of psychosis. And this is a lifelong, kind of manageable chronic condition. But at the end of the day, the implications for the family is that they are sitting with an individual who is not productive, who cannot go to work, who eventually has permanent brain damage. And this person had a chance at a bright future, but because of choices, decisions, poor decision making, they then become, less than active in the family role. So the family has to take responsibility, and it puts immense pressure on parents, it puts immense pressure on spouses, it puts immense pressure on children. It practically leaves people poorer whereas they would have had a fully functional individual part of the family structure.
Hmm. What is the first step to repairing relationships broken by addiction? What should addicts do in taking the first step?
Okay, in taking the first step with regards to the addict is admitting that you have a problem and getting treatment for that problem, because that is the first step. And there's a little window period in which you have to act because you do not know how much more your brain can take or your body can take in terms of using drugs. The kind of ingredients that are in the drugs, it sets people off into psychosis much quicker, than other people, for example. So you don't know what your threshold is. So the first step is to act quickly, accept that you have a problem, approach your loved ones or a professional to get help and say, look, I need help to rehabilitate myself. But often we must remember that there are different stages of addiction. So it depends at what stage you get the person at. The
Hmm.
first step is experimentation. The second step is social use. The third stage is where the person is no more using socially, they're using by themselves. And the fourth stage is where it starts to impact their work, family relationships, or education. So if People normally come to us when they've hit rock bottom, and this is at the fourth stage when it's now completely visible to family members. They can see that you're neglecting yourself, your work, your studies, and that's when they come to us. But it's very crucial to remember that in the fourth stage, this is where psychosis could set in. And we're seeing a lot of personality disorders that develop, or drug-induced psychosis, we call it, that develops as a result of using drugs. So the first step is admitting that you are powerless over your addiction. A lot of people say, I can control this, it doesn't control me, but that's not the case. A lot of families try to sweep it under the carpet thinking it's like a flu, or, it's just going to go away, or can't you just stop? But the reality is that addiction is a disease of the brain. It is a chronic treatable disease, and it requires professional intervention and detoxification. A lot of drugs that people are using, they require detox in order for them to be ready for rehabilitation.
Mhm. There was a time when we spoke about addiction to painkillers. So, people who are addicted to painkillers, how can they admit to themselves that they are addicted to painkillers? Because, I mean, obviously, to them, it's that they have this pain that they're going through, so they need to take medication for that pain.
Mhm. This is a very tricky one, and it's a very common one, especially in light of certain people's choices. We have a different kind of a challenge when we deal with people who are addicted, whether it's painkillers or other drugs. It is denial. People have intense denial, like, I can't control it. I'm not addicted. I know what an addict looks like. I'm not an addict. But we said that there are different stages of addiction. It's just that you don't know which stage you are at. Just because you think an addict looks a certain way and you don't look that way, does not mean that you are not addicted or growing the habit towards that. Painkiller addiction is so dangerous because the more you use, the more tolerance your body builds up. So the more you use, the more your body gets used to what you're using. And as a result of that, the more you need in order to attain the same effect. So with pain killer addiction, because it's over the counter, we're seeing a lot of people who go and codeine, for example. They buy codeine containing cough mixtures, or codeine containing tablets, or certain painkillers or sleeping tablets, and they're addicted to that. And the first step, like we said, with any other type of addiction, is to get help. Admit that you have a problem. If you find yourself using one tablet consistently and having to increase the dosage, you already know that you are in danger or you are overusing something. And remember, each tablet comes with side effects, like we discussed in the previous show. Those side effects will need you to require more medication in order to counter the effects of the other medication. And so the addiction and the dependence grows. So I always say that drugs is a symptom of a problem. So the drug isn't the problem, it is a symptom of a deeper issue. The question is, what is the deeper issue? And there must be, and there definitely are healthier ways to overcome whatever it is that's causing you to use.
Definitely, I know people will take painkillers just for a headache, and when they don't have a headache, they're just taking it and tell people that no, I've got a headache, so I'm taking this grandpa powder or whatever it is that they are taking. How long will it take to amend these relationships?
Sorry, I didn't get that, Mariam. Can you repeat that?
How long will it take to repair the broken relationships?
How long does it take to repair the broken relationships? Okay, so when it comes to relationships, this is the thing. It's dependent on how willing are you to make amends as the family member? How willing are you as the addict to actually show? Because remember, trust was broken through actions. So only through actions can it be mended. And also, you cannot be doing it for the family member. You need to show sincerity in your actions because it will be judged accordingly. It took intentions and it took actions to break the trust. So that is the same recipe. They say it takes years to build trust and only a second to break it, and years after that to rebuild it. So it's dependent on how willing the other side is to accept it. Your efforts. And also remember that some people say, I may forgive you, but I will never forget, and I also don't want to make the same mistake. So
Mm.
prove to me that you won't do this again. Prove to me that your will overcome your need to do this, because every human being has willpower. And I know that there's a lot of parents out there who are watching and listening. I know there's a lot of potential, clients out there watching. I know that there's a lot of addicts out there watching, and it's not impossible. You can definitely build or mend relationships, because it's not something that's irreparable. It just depends on how willing you are, how committed you are to rehabilitating yourself and actually sticking to your programs, and working the steps necessary to keep you motivated, because the right choice gives you the right results. And the wrong choice, obviously, will make you or cause you to lose valuable relationships.
Mm-hmm. What about when you have built this trust again and you are now in the process of proving to your family that you are a recovering addict, then you relapse and you now have to
Mhm.
start all over again? I mean, it's difficult for them to see that you are really serious about getting help.
Yes, this is an excellent question, Miriam. The thing about relapse is that when somebody comes in for treatment, we definitely inform the family that be prepared for this because it might happen. Remember, we're saying that addiction is a treatable chronic disease, which means it exists, it's there. This person is fighting the will and the urge and the cravings consistently. And should relapse occur, you need to work out a plan as the family to say, how are we going to deal with relapse? And this is where counseling comes in for families. It is not just up to the addict to get counseling. It is also the family who needs counseling, because you need to know how to deal with this person, how to deal with manipulation, how to deal with the
Mm-hmm.
denial, how to deal with the lies and the mistrust, and all of the pain that's been caused. So the family needs psychosocial support. You need a professional to sit with the family and recognize, tell them, this is how you recognize the signs of and symptoms of a relapse. This is how you deal with it. But do not be unforgiving, because remember, we're saying it is a chronic disease and it is treatable and manageable. You wouldn't say to somebody that we'll throw you out if you relapse, because that will demotivate them. You need to be there for them, but you also need to be assertive. We call it tough love. This is when the
Mm-hmm.
family has a no nonsense approach to say, whatever you think you did and got right before, it's not going to work this time, because we are wiser. And this is where a professional comes in and teaches you that these are the nicks and tricks of, that you can expect, and this is how you deal with it. So it's called tough love, and this is something that families need to adopt. Also, the issue of sweeping it under the carpet. Eventually, this person is going to, go into psychosis, and that's going to be an even bigger problem for the family in the future. So dealing with a relapse, it's not an unforgivable thing. Even the addict needs to know that we will stand by you throughout this. But should you relapse, please remember there are consequences, and us as a family will support you. But please go to your aftercare. We will also support you, but go to your aftercare and ensure that if you see a craving coming or you feel a craving coming on, what are the tools you've learned to deal with that, and then let's help you do that instead of you turning to the drug again.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What else can we do to help build those relationships that were broken by addiction?
Okay, the thing is that it's really difficult because it depends on the age and the time of life of the person as well. Trust is something that's very, very important in any relationship, even in an employee-employer environment. If you don't have trust, you can't work for someone. So trust is something that if the individual doesn't trust themselves, and I think that's what we work on as professionals, we work on the individual starting to trust themselves and their decision making again, and basically putting in the fundamentals so that if you trust yourself and you love yourself and you want to make good decisions, and this process is thorough, then you will have no problem rebuilding the trust between you and your loved ones. Remember, it all stems from the self, it all stems from within. And if somebody's coming to treatment, that is where we need to focus on. What is their motivation for treatment? Why are they here? Is it because of family or themselves? Number two, are they serious about this process? Because if they are, they will unpack all of the things that led them to this through this journey and to this journey of addiction. So once we thoroughly unpack that, I promise you this person starts to build. It's like, if I can describe it to you, it's like a car that's all the parts have been taken, it's been stripped of everything inside. And we put everything back as it should be, and this person actually rebuilds their life and they function optimally again.
Hmm. Now, what happens in a situation whereby the patient returns home for a while and they relapse, and
Mhm.
now they don't want to go back to their treatment center because of the way they were being treated at the treatment center? What do you do
Mhm.
then? Do you take them to a different place? Do you believe what they are telling you, or you go and
Mhm.
investigate on your own? What do you do?
That's a very important thing as well. When you are going to admit somebody to a treatment center, make sure you do your research. Are they a registered facility? Because we all need to be registered with the Department of Social Development. You know, how long has the center been in existence for? Take a tour of the facility. Get comfortable with the counselors. You know, speak to them and get there. They need to. You need to be pulled in by that program and say, listen, I feel like this is a good place for you. But they also have to have a proven track record. You don't want to be sending them to a place where they get punished physically or they have to do incredibly hard work, because actually people tend to think treatment is about outward. You need to be doing physical work, you need to be being lashed or being punished, when the work actually takes place inside. We need to go inside the individual and find out what's been happening in there to push them in this direction. So families need to please take heed and contact reputable places with proven track records, with registered professionals. Contact your Department of Social Development and say, I want to go to the center. Please tell me, is it registered? Because if it's registered with the department, it means they are compliant with their programs and they are compliant with safety measures. Then you'll know this is a legitimate facility. Also with professionals, be careful who you choose, because your client needs to be comfortable with the counselor. Remember, the family walks away. The person is left there and has to go through the process. So they have got to be happy. And yes, our clients are not always willing to come into rehab. They're not always voluntarily coming in here. But once they walk through the door and we speak to them and we say to them, this is for you. Like, everybody brought you here, yes, but this is your journey, it's your process. You have a decision to make. This is the two directions you have available to you. A, you keep on using and you end up either in jail or the grave, because that's the only two destinations for you in that case. Or B, you come in here and you work on your life and we offer you all of these programs and the support, and you have a chance at a brand new, happy, wholesome life. But we need to know what's going on with you, and you're the focus. You are the most important person in this process. So we need to get your buy-in. And I mean, 9 out of 10 times, they stay, but they have got to be happy with what they see, happy with the professional, and they've got to feel unjudged. Do not judge somebody who is using drugs, because it is, it's also something that is genetic. Okay, people inherit the gene of addiction. There's a science to it, and because there's a lack of understanding and awareness, people judge them harshly, and that's the one thing that people say to me: I don't want to come to rehab because what will
Mhm.
people say? And families likewise say, I don't want to admit him because how am I going to tell my family my son is in rehab?
Exactly.
Okay, and my answer to them is, okay, if you don't want to, then in a year from now, you will have to explain why your son or daughter is in a psychiatric institution, because drugs will lead them there. So you make a choice. Either you blow the lid off and you become, an inspiration to other people to say there is no stigma, or you
Mhm.
keep it behind closed doors, and then you've got to choose a psychiatric institution next year, and that is for life. We will lose this person. So that is the dilemma when it comes to that. But the client has got to be happy with the facility. The people have got to be professionally apt and capable to deal with the client. And it's got to have a proven track record and be registered so that you know they are compliant. And you have, bodies that you can go to. And if something goes wrong, you can go to Department of Social Development, and you know that it's completely reputable.
All right, Nazia, for those families who are watching and listening, how can they contact you should they require more information?
Sure, they can contact me on 082-779-5287, and they can check out my Facebook page, which is Recovery Times as well, or they can WhatsApp me as well. I'm available, and it's quite, I know it's difficult, but support is important and education is important, and I'm ever willing to assist.
All right, so shukran so much for your time once again and for the informative talk.
Afwan, Jazakallah for having me again, Mariam.
It's a pleasure. Have a lovely day. Assalamu alaikum.
You too, alaikum assalam.
That was life coach and counselor Nazia Saloojie. If you would like to contact her regarding any more information on addiction, on who to, where to go, where to take your child or relative, family member, friend, anyone, you may contact her on 082 779 5287. You may call her, SMS her, or text her via WhatsApp. She's also on Facebook as a Recovery Times. Addiction is something that can affect every single one of us. In fact, it has affected many of us, many of our family members. Many of us have family members who are addicted to something, but we just like to keep it within closed doors because of what will people say. If we can stop this thinking of what will people say and rather focus on helping those people, then we can break the stigma and we won't have to worry about that too much. In fact, why do we let it control us? Why do we let what people think and feel and say about us control us? Either way, people will always have an opinion. You take a person to a rehab center, they will have an opinion about that. You take a person to a hospital, they will still say something. You don't take them, they will still say something. So why are you letting it control you? Just stop, take a moment, breathe, and think about the future of the person who has the addiction that is closest to you, because it's about them and it's not about the rest of the world and how the rest of the world will feel. Anyway, once again, the number is 082 779 5287. Do stay with us. We will be right back.